Good evening, I'm Roman McKinnon and welcome to SpinCheck for this Thursday evening. It has been a busy few days in Canberra with spills and a majority government confirmed for the Labor Party. The party claimed victory in the seat of Macnamara, which boosted them to the majority number, 76. It was a fairly tight contest between the Liberals, ALP and Greens. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese addressed Labor MPs, including the new ones, at their first federal caucus since they won the federal election. It follows two new leaders and two new deputies in the coalition, with, as expected, Peter Dutton becoming the Liberal leader and Susan Lee his deputy. Over in the Nationals, David Littleproud defeated Barnaby Joyce to become the third Nationals leader in the span of a single year. Perrin Davey will be his deputy. And as the nation waits for Parliament to resume, there's a little more certainty, with the Prime Minister saying it will be back in the last week of July amid a high level of crossbenchers. For more on this, I spoke to 6 News chief anchor Leo Puglisi earlier. Leo, we heard both Peter Dutton and David Littleproud both talking about leading from the centre. What does this exactly mean?
It's interesting because it can be interpreted in a couple of ways. You can have some talking about leading from the centre, that's on the broad political spectrum, so from a centrist position, and then it could be the more likely interpretation, he's centre-right. Because we've heard, especially in the Liberals, less so in the Nationals, really in the Liberals, you've had moderate MPs who are really wanting to stick with that moderate line. These were the ones who pretty much all lost their seats, so we're talking like Dave Sharma, Trent Zimmerman, etc. And then you have people who want the LNP to go hard right back to its, apparent conservative values and really getting away from that, maybe that small L liberal demographic. And so that can create some division, which is why you've got Dutton saying he wants to lead from the centre. The thing about that is he's part of the National Right faction. Some will describe him as hard right. He's not exactly someone you'd consider to be a moderate or even a centrist. So that'll be interesting. At the same time, with the Nationals, there's really not much of a moderate national position, maybe a bit on climate. I know David Littleproud is interesting because he was one of the few Lower House MPs who voted against same-sex marriage, but he's also a bit moderate on environmental things, maybe a bit more so than someone like Michael McCormack, which is why also some on all levels of politics wanted to go with Darren Chester, who is definitely more of a moderate here in Victoria.
We saw Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, announce a date for Parliament to resume, 26th of July. What will both houses look like?
Well, we know the lower house, as we've discussed before, is definitely going to be dominated by the Teal Independents and the Greens. I won't go into that too much. People can check out last week's edition of SpinCheck for more on that. But it'll be mainly Teal Independents. The Greens, they've now got 4 seats, with Stephen Bates claiming victory in Brisbane. We can also include some of the non-Teal independents. That'd be Di Lee, who's a bit more of a right-winger there, who defeated Christina Keneally in Fowler in New South Wales. You've got obviously Bob Katter, who's a bit of a mixed bag from the Katter's Australian Party, and then also Rebecca Sharkey from Centre Alliance. In terms of the upper house, Greens 12 senators holding the balance of power there. Jackie Lambie Network looking like it's got 2. David Pocock Party with 1. One Nation, Pauline Hanson's likely to take her seat back. Not certain yet. So that'll be 2 for One Nation. Liberals and Nationals and LNP will have some CLP getting some representation back. But with Labor having a majority going back to the lower house here, you have to wonder how much of an impact the crossbench can actually have. They won't be having to govern in a minority agreement with Labor. Labor won't necessarily need them for the supply agreement. What we could see is an independent Speaker of the House, which would be really interesting to see. And it's not something we'd always see, but, it'd make life a bit more interesting. And wouldn't it be funny if we had Bob Katter as the Speaker? I think that'd provide a lot of entertainment.
We had 2 new leaders and 2 new deputies, including one spill from the Nationals. The media, they're always fascinated by these spills.
Yeah, look, I am too, and well, we're part of the media. It's just so, fascinating. And we have to remember here, by the way, that the Nationals one, it happens after all elections. Actually, well, it might be all losing elections, but it definitely happens regularly. This was a planned spill. At the same time, let's remember, Barnaby Joyce came through a non-planned spill only a year ago, so that's 3 Nationals leaders in the space of a year. Look, spills have always been one of the most interesting thing in Australian politics, a bit of a unique thing too, from Rudd to Gillard to Rudd to Abbott to Turnbull and then Turnbull to Morrison. It's something that is always, garnered attention, and whether that's, having those live feeds from inside Parliament House where you're waiting for someone to come out and say, this is who won, this was the results. It's just got to be one of the more interesting parts of Australian politics, more entertaining too. I mean, there are so many who are fascinated. You see it trend all the time on social media. Hashtag LibSpill, NatSpill, LabSpill. I think LibSpill probably fits the best. It's the most easy to pronounce. But I know you and I are both probably going to be covering a lot of things to do with leadership soon, and that includes things like, on a state level, what we have the Victorian election, and would obviously point back to Matthew Guy, who came back through a spill after replacing Michael O'Brien, who replaced Guy, who lost the 2018 election or led the Liberals to a loss. So that's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. And then you also got Dan Andrews, who's an 8-year, 2-term premier, which is always going to be interesting. But Roman, look, we're definitely going to be covering it. I think we might do what we did with the federal election, have some live coverage on the night of the Vic one, which is late November.
Yeah, well, we're sort of already getting prepped for that, Leo. But yeah, no doubt, it's a state level election is just as interesting, really, as the federal election. You still have those seats, and who's gonna be leading the state this time. So yeah, but no doubt, we're starting to gear up. I know. Before you say it's 6 months away, but we're starting to prepare for that.
And why don't we even look even further forward? March next year, the New South Wales election. We have new leaders there. Labor got a new leader. The Liberals got a new leader after Gladys Berejiklian resigned, and we had all that happening. So, look, no doubt these will be 2 very interesting elections because they both have some interesting elements to their voting system. You've got you can just vote one system in New South Wales, and then you've also got group voting tickets, which still exist only in Victoria. So something we'll be paying close attention to as both these elections come up fairly soon.
And that is SpinCheck for this evening. Thanks so much for tuning in. A reminder, we'll be back next week, same time, Thursday, 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Time. But of course, you can catch up on demand on our YouTube channel. Just search 6 News AU to find us. And on Sunday, we will have all the latest headlines and breaking news. Same time, 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. But for now, I'm Roman McKinnon. Thanks so much for your company. Good night.